1, 2, 3. Wake up in the morning and your hair's all a mess. Stumble out of bed.
And Abiders Encore, Minnesota professional sports, and AI-powered journalism on Democratic Visions. Here's producer Jeff Strait.
Artificial intelligence, AI, well, it's become more tempting and more interesting than ice cream and baked goods that are lathered in frosting. Last October, Eden Prairie Local News, the EP Chamber of Commerce, and the school district co-hosted a town hall-style event. They named it AI Hype, Harm, or Hope.
I realize I really don't know a lot about artificial intelligence, but I'm also aware that I use it every day without knowing that much about it.
AI certainly is going to be able to do and is doing some amazing things.
Former Eden Prairie Local News editor Dr. Brad Canham was there to hear what the panelists and attendees had to say and question. Canham joined us in July for a talk with Mike McIntee about artificial intelligence, particularly about its impact on journalism. Dr. Brad is founder and CEO of the Market Finds Agency, which serves emergent technological firms. Regular viewers know that Mike McIntee is a journalist, filmmaker, and video producer. Now then, Dr. Brad and Mike sift through good AI and bad AI.
So Brad is joining us now to talk about AI. And Brad, we've been talking ahead of this, but I've got a lot of fears about AI. A lot of other people have fears about AI. We might lose our job. There's all sorts of misinformation out there. Tell me why I should or shouldn't be worried about this.
Well, yeah, thanks, Mike. Well, I think it's fair, to feel concerned, and it's fair to feel some fear and anxiety about what is a fundamental new technology. One of the things that I want to kind of make sure that we get to is that people feel empowered also. AI certainly is going to be able to do and is doing some amazing things, but I think it's the fear of change and the fear of not quite knowing what the future may look like, even the near future, that is causing a lot of the anxiety and fear and kind of dread.
Well, I think a lot of this is just, continuing the things that we've been experiencing. Like we have dread an election coming up because
Sure.
There's all sorts of misinformation that was flying around the last one, and we're worried that there's going to be even more that we can't tell if it's real or if it's not this time. What are we going to do about that?
Well, I mean, there are those in the AI community who believe that, there's going to be the development of good AI that will tamp down the bad AI, right? There are those who believe that artificial general intelligence, this kind of capacity for AI to be as smart as any expert in most cognitive tasks, to be able then to focus on creating even better AI, moving towards kind of super intelligence, that is going to result in, is it going to be good or bad? That is a topic of very intense debate. But the good news is there's a lot of debate and there's a lot of interest in making sure that kind of ends up net, good for people.
So potentially I've got some bad AI that's telling me something bad or wrong, but I could have good AI somehow stepping in and intervening and tell me pay no attention to that man behind the curtain, or?
Sure, yeah. So you can imagine like an image of a politician or something in which a good AI generated by a bad AI, in which a good AI its job is to discern, is this a true image or is it a false image? So that's the kind of environment that is playing out. People are developing those technologies.
Now, truth, you just mentioned the word. A lot of that has to do with journalism. That's a topic that we're both very
Right.
passionate about. And when you start talking about AI, I worry about that truth can get bent, or that the power that powers journalism, the money that we get from web traffic and everything else, could be just pushed away because AI is summarizing all those articles and it's saying, you don't need to go to that website. You don't need all of that ad revenue to go to the Star Tribune or the Eden Prairie Local News because we've got all the information here. And that, I think, can really upset the journalism model.
Right. Well, I think there are a couple of things in there when we're looking at kind of like truth in journalism. So why do, as a reminder, so why do we have journalism?
Okay.
You and I were talking about this earlier. You've got a democracy, despite what some people may say. You've got a democracy in which being able to discern the truth is fundamental to making choices about creating a kind of common good for a country. A democracy or any political system, has their agendas and there's power involved, and that may or may not involve, caring about the truth. So journalism in the American democracy has this special place. And AI can be used, again, to kind of synthesize data and do a lot of instrumental stuff in service to that truth, right? It also can be used, as you note, to kind of deconstruct the economic model even further for journalism. But there is a path, because these large language models and these AI companies, they need good data. If they don't have good data, the AI is no good, bottom line.
Yeah, I worry about that suddenly, all the good journalism places go out of business and AI is just regurgitating the same stuff.
Well, speaking of like Eden Prairie Local News and other small hyper-local journalistic organizations, they are vetting the truth in a way that no other entity really does in these small communities. And so if an AI wants to have a full and complete output, say associated with Eden Prairie or some other community anywhere in the country, that data from a local news organization is really a gold mine of what the truth is, and it's very time focused. So those large language model companies, Google, Microsoft, Meta, OpenAI, Amazon, et cetera, the big players, they have a vested interest, in my view, in creating some kind of relationship with these smaller organizations, maybe through a broker, maybe through an association of small organizations, small journalistic organizations, and paying for that information rather than just scraping it. And the scraping is going to end, by the way, because there are AI tools and other tools being developed to basically poison data, so that if someone just comes along, scrapes it off our website or a website, well, it's going to show up in the AI model as poison data. It won't be any good.
So, governments have tried to enforce this. Like I think Australia said, Google, you need to pay for the news, and there's been pushback from all these large, tech companies. No, we're not going to do that. But what you're saying is the dynamics have changed, and if they really want the goose to keep laying the golden eggs, they've got to pay the goose.
Right. Well, and what's interesting about AI is that the regulatory and policy environment around AI is very intense, as opposed to social media when it first came out. Like, we didn't have policy and regulatory concerns for many years after that. With AI, it's very intense. So regulators are paying a lot of attention. It's fair, I think it's an easy prediction to say that in the next few months during this election cycle, we're going to see AI-generated bad things happen.
Oh, we're already seeing it. Seeing it.
So the AI companies have a vested interest in showing up in the public forum to say, we're supporting democracy in this way. Look, we're supporting all these little local, hyper-local news. We're supporting journalism. It's just a strong move for them to make. It's kind of crass and political, but there it is. It could make a big difference in the policy and regulatory environment that they're operating in.
So how about the other side of this? Journalism using AI as a tool to report the news, because more and more, we're asked to do more and more with less and less.
Sure.
Every organization is. And so it's very tempting to say, well, let's just grab this thing that can take a box score and turn it into an entire, story for somebody, written like, a regular reporter. Ethical, good idea, bad idea, fraught with what? What are your thoughts here?
Well, I mean, there's no way that AI isn't going to be part of most professions going forward. It just is. And, it's instrumental use to synthesize data, to do forms of analysis. I've used it, to use it as kind of people talking more and more about like AI agents. So these kind of companions that you can bounce ideas off of. It's fantastic for that kind of thing. But it's still operating, AI is still operating with what I mostly describe as kind of like a technical understanding of things. In that, you and I, in navigating what is kind of the truth and navigating, well, I could say this, but should I? That's an ethical decision. Or, we say like people know more than what they say in any given moment. AI can't do that. And so the mastery that AI could apply to a journalistic endeavor is going to lack those capabilities. It just is. It's not embodied. It's code, and it's an algorithm.
I could see that helping me to gather lots of information.
Yeah.
But I think what you're saying, and I agree, is that we need somebody to then check it and put it out and write it in a way that is going to engage me, as opposed to just being, as you said, a bunch of robotic text that's coming out. But I've seen some pretty good robotic text coming out that pretends to engage me and can sound just like a journalist. So, I mean, we're kind of there right now. Do we need to just make sure that we have labeling and say, this is AI generated or this is AI assisted? Is that going to help the consumer?
Yeah, I think, again, we're kind of pointing at that, what is trustworthy, right? So it's, I define trustworthy as like you take a risk with something, and then even stepping forward, you step forward and you trust the ground's going to be there. And you do that enough times, you kind of trust that. So that's like trustworthiness, right? Same with AI, is that there are a lot of things that can happen with an AI tool or capability, and consumers should be able to see like, oh, this AI has been certified, it's being audited, it's observable, it's explainable. I know the data, the processes that have gone into it. It's been labeled by some entity somewhere. All those things are trustworthy building pieces, right? So it's a process. It's not just a stamp. And I think that will become more clear in the next, if I had to guess, next year or two.
I remember, though, as a journalist, I've been a journalist, I still consider myself a journalist, but one of the things was that once you broke someone's trust, you could never get it back. And we've already seen with a lot of the tools that are out there that, they're reporting make pizza with rocks or whatever it may be, that there's ways of poisoning the data. And has that window of opportunity to get trust for AI already passed?
Well, I don't know that it's passed, but you point out something that is, there's a study by the World Economic Forum, a group called Edelman. They do a trust survey of various business sectors, including technology and specifically AI. And they see that AI is much less trusted in the technology sector. And the technology sector, which used to be kind of rising as this trusted business sector, is starting to, it's flattened out. So I think there is that pushback. It does point to people who are calling for a pause on AI development to kind of let regulations catch up, to let the culture catch up. But of course, there are the commercial forces that are just like go, 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 go to Silicon Valley. I'm very familiar with that. I've been there. I've been in those companies. And that is a dynamic we're right in the middle of.
You told me you travel all over the country on trains, you said. But
Trains and planes.
Trains and planes, okay. And you have people want to talk to you about AI. What are people asking you that we haven't talked about today?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, to your point about is this going to take my job? What can I do to prepare for AI in my job is one that often comes up. Usually I try to help people think through is like, what are the areas of your role that you are that you bring some special expertise to? Because most people don't think about it too much after a while. You just kind of do it. You're just good at it. Mm-hmm. And kind of augment that and start playing with AI in a way that you can kind of see that relationship between your mastery as an expert, as a professional, and adding to that in some way, right? And I think that is a way people can integrate AI into their lives and their kind of sense of mastering their own future instead of being mastered by this thing coming at them.
Sounds like what we want to do is think about AI as a great office assistant or an intern that can help us do research and pull stuff together and make the life better. But we're still the boss. We're still in charge.
Yep. And that's the language coming out of the chip makers these days. The large companies like Microsoft, Google, Meta, all those, it's agentic AI, and it's this also embedding of AI into our devices, right? So that we'll have AI that goes from your phone to your computer to your TV, all your connected devices will remember each other more or less, and you'll have this ubiquitous kind of experience of AI. That's what that's the user experience model that these companies are pushing for. We can pretty much expect in the next year or two, like that's the standard.
So that's your prediction.
That's my prediction.
Thank you. Our personal devices forming an artificial intelligence bond with one another and ourselves. But right now, let's consider bonding with our neighbors. This year, National Night Out was held on August 5th. It's a real thing in Eden Prairie. American neighborliness fully blossoms on an evening at the start of the dog days of summer, and no state fair hype is needed. 3 years ago, on August 3rd, I joined my good friends, the Abiders, for a national night out. My favorite blues band was set up on Osceola Avenue in St. Paul.
Solos in it. We get to do a lot of solos, and everybody gets to play a little bit of something. So it's called Milk and Honey. 2, 1, 2, 3. Wake up in the morning and your hair's all a mess. Stumble out of bed about a half undressed. Go into the kitchen, you fire up the pot. Can't wait to see what you put in my cup. A little milk and honey. A little milk and honey. A little milk and honey. Gonna sweeten it fine. Dark outside, you sip over the dog. You say a few choice words and then you laugh out loud. You hear yourself something down beside my head. I reach over, pull you back into bed for a little milk and honey. A little milk and honey. A little milk and honey. And gonna sweeten it fine. That first taste is kinda creamy and warm, just a little bit of sweet on the end of my tongue. I wrap my arms around you, I hold you a while. This is a way to start a day with a smile, with a little milk and honey. A little milk and honey. A little milk and honey. I'm gonna sweeten it fine. Oh, Carlos! Andy, take it away,
longtime TV broadcast pal, Brad Cochran, was in from Seattle on Sunday, August 11th. He had a high school reunion later that week. I took him to Cecil's Deli, and he took me to CHS Field for a Saints game.
I've been traveling around the country going to every minor league baseball game that I can, and I'm here in St. Paul, Minnesota with the St. Paul Saints.
And you're a St. Paul native?
I'm a St. Paul native, even though my accent is the same.
Although the Saints lost to Columbus, it was well worth our time. We got to sing some, and we're comfortable with Minnesota pro teams losing important regular season and playoff games. Mike McIntee and Mike Gelfand talk about that right now.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Good to see you today. Glad you could join us. I wanted to talk today a little bit about sports, the Minnesota inferiority complex, because it seems like none of us can agree that we have great sports teams and that we always seem to lose in the championships.
Well, if we get there.
If we get there, that's right.
Because the NBA, the basketball team, we'll talk about the WNBA, I'm sure soon, but the NBA team, the Timberwolves, got to the quarter. When they got to the quarterfinals, people acted like we had just won the whole thing. They were so thrilled. So I think that there is this thing legitimately called Minnesota mediocrity, and because it's like with the Vikings, they get there sometimes. They got there 4 times, but they never got the big one. So people here, they want the big one, because in sports, if you don't win it all, you lose.
I understand that, but in Minnesota, we have made it to the big one and won it a bunch of times. I mean, I'm not going to go back to the Twins. That was 91. That was last century. But I'm talking about, WNBA, the Lynx here. They've won 4 titles. We've got the Aurora, who have had 3 undefeated seasons, and then we have.
That's a boutique team, isn't it?
That's a boutique team, yes.
I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying people are not going to have parades for them.
Okay, I'll give you that. I was kind of interested because they were in my backyard in Eagan, but then we had this year the first women's professional hockey league championship, and we won that as well. I mean, we still need a name for the team, but
yeah. Well, they put the team together like in 10 days, as I recall.
Yeah. And
I guess on the 11th day they rested, or maybe they played hockey. I don't know. But that who knows what'll come from there. I mean, the WNBA wasn't much when it started, so anything's possible.
So why can't we as Minnesotans get behind these and celebrate them as great victories, and as opposed to just saying we're going to just grouse until the Vikings win a Super Bowl?
See, we save that attitude for our kids. Like when our kids are playing t-ball and they knock the ball off the tube it's on, but can't quite hit the ball, and then the parents clap and they say, "That was really good, Lance, that was great." And then I used to coach t-ball for years and years, and I'd go up to the parents and I'd say, "Save it for when he really does something good, okay? Because you won't leave him with anything left if you're cheering now." That's the way people feel about big sports around here. They're not gonna, they'll clap for the Twins, but they'll really get good and drunk if they make it to the World Series.
Okay, I'll give you that, but it's a victory. It's a championship. I mean, these are great athletes. What I can't understand is the amount of ink that gets spilled for the NBA and football and everything else. And then when you have a winning team like the Lynx, it hasn't happened the last couple of years, but the ink is not spread around as much.
Well, I used to live in Chicago, and the Chicago teams were all really horrible. The Cubs were horrible. The White Sox were horrible. The Chicago Bears were horrible. And people there just thought it was funny. They'd been down so long, it looked like up to them. It's an old hit book, but that's kind of the attitude they had. So they would just laugh when they lost again. But Minnesotans haven't quite come to that point yet, because Minnesotans, it's not so much an inferiority complex, because people in Minnesota actually believe they deserve a champion.
Are we just going to continue to feel bad about ourselves until somebody kicks a ball and wins us a Super Bowl?
I think maybe maybe it's a little different. Maybe I don't see it that way. I think they feel bad about the teams, not themselves. They feel great about themselves.
Okay, so it's not us, it's them. That's the way it is.
It's just like, okay, so look at the WNBA. Now, a lot of people around here think the WNBA is about 3 or 4 years old. They don't quite understand it's almost 30 years old because most people here just ignored it. And then all of a sudden, and people wrote columns, especially, liberals. I'm a liberal, but progressives, they wrote columns about how if only the newspapers, there were newspapers in that day, and I worked for one, damn it. And so they would say, if the newspapers if they covered the WNBA as much as the NBA, then and the WNBA the teams, the arena would be full every night. People would be really excited, but it doesn't work that way. You look at the WNBA. Yeah, they struggled. For many years, the players were getting I think maybe 25,000 a year at one point. Now they're up to I think about 100,000 a year. But for all the columns that were written, for all the emotions that were spent, the fact of the matter is this 6-foot-tall white woman turned it all around, and that's just the way it happened. I'm not saying that's the way it should happen, but that's the way it happened.
Caitlin Clark, that's who you're talking about, from our neighbor down to the south.
That's right.
And that's what it takes.
Well, I started watching Caitlin Clark I'd say about 2.5 years ago when I discovered her. I was flipping around the channels and I found a Iowa women's basketball game, and this woman was shooting from the logo, and I don't think I missed a game after that. I know nothing about the WNBA basically until she went into it. And now I watch many NBA games, and the acid test for me, and the one I have passed, is that I sometimes bet on those games.
So we need a bunch more Caitlin Clark caliber players in the WNBA, and then people are going to start paying attention to it, or?
No, what I'm saying is they already have started because of her. So now people are starting to discover, a lot of the great players in the WNBA, but she is unique and she does draw a lot of attention.
All right. Well, Mike, we got to go, but I'm waiting for that Vikings victory in the Super Bowl still.
Well, my sympathy, but I think it's going to be a while. But I plan to live into at least mid-90s.
All right. Good luck to us both.
And so it goes here in Minnesota. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.
Democratic Visions is handcrafted by volunteers from Eden Prairie, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Edina, and Bloomington. Watch us on select cable systems and on our YouTube channel. This is Carol Sundstrom.